Terry Parks here, and just want to do a little interview with my good friend David Hoflein. And David and I have known each other since 2014, and we met by a divine appointment at a Christian coffee house in Pennsylvania. And sometimes when you meet people, if you're sensitive and aware of the presence of the Holy Spirit, you recognize that it's not just a casual meeting, but in fact it's a divine connection, a divine appointment. And so when David and I met at this little coffee house in Towanda, Pennsylvania, I sensed that in my spirit that this was a divine connection. And David, you're what, 30, 31?
32.
32 years old. I'm 56. And so in the natural, there's not a lot. I could be your father. As a matter of fact, I have children older than you. And so in the natural, there's not a lot that would make us gravitate towards friendship. But when you're sensitive to the Spirit, sometimes you sense a connection that's different than just a casual how do you do kind of meeting. And so we were sitting there in this coffee shop having our coffee or lunch or whatever it was, and he was helping the person that was managing it move a freezer. And so the person that was managing it asked if I could help David move the freezer. It was the first time I'd ever been there, but I said sure. And so after that, we sat down and had a little bit of a conversation, and sensed it was a God connection. And so since that time, I was at the time working down in the D.C. area. I was just coming up to help with my mother because she had dementia at the time. Well, she still has dementia. But I knew at some point I was going to move back up to this area. And when I did, David came to mind. And so that was then 2015 in the fall. And so I reached out to you with a text.
Yeah.
And so I think you were working...
It was fall 2016.
Was it 2016?
Yeah.
Okay. And you were working, I think, in a job that you were not real happy about, right?
Yeah, I was working construction, contract work, and just wasn't my jam.
Yeah, and so David, David's a guy who has a bachelor's degree from Roberts, right?
Yeah.
And then he went and got his master's of divinity through Regent University.
Yeah, and I just graduated at the time and didn't have any ministry job or nothing on the horizon.
Just a dream, right? At that
point.
point.
I lived in a rural PA. I mean, there wasn't a lot of churches to pastor at.
Right, right. Yeah, and so tell a little bit about your background. You did do a little pastoral work. You did some ministry on your own. And some of the frustrations maybe of that.
I pastored a little country church in that area for almost 2 years, and I just really felt like the Lord told my wife and I really strongly that we were supposed to give that church back to its former pastor who had left, actually.
Right.
And he had come back to the area, wanted to plant a church in the area, but I had already had this sitting on this word for a year that I was supposed to give him the church back. And so right as he said, I want to plant a church in the area, but I don't want to hurt you or the church you're pastoring, I was like, well, don't you worry about that. You have this one right.
So you were pastoring faithfully,
yes,
but you had that word in your heart.
Yes.
You just were waiting for the time to let that
to give
manifest and emerge. Oh, wow.
Yeah, so he took it back, replanted it. We helped him. We actually, after 6 months of not going to that church, after he took it back, let the congregation and pastors sync up again.
Yeah.
We went back, and I ended up basically helping him on a volunteer basis, like preach and teach and pour in, and sit, Well, and that's where I was, and then I was working other jobs. I tried to launch a life coaching business, got like 4 coaching certifications. I was working on my MDiv and all that. So I was largely a student, and then working other jobs, trying to launch a business that didn't work. I taught at a Christian school. Yeah. And then by the time you caught up with me, I was maybe at my lowest point, and I was, I think you texted me, and I was literally using a nailer to nail floor molding on a house, and I was like, this is not what I signed up for. Some people love that stuff. I just didn't. So I was so happy when you texted me and we reconnected. Yeah.
Well, and I think there's a lot of lessons in just what we've covered. A lot of times God qualifies us in the mundane. He was pastoring a church. He knew that wasn't his long-term calling. He knew at some point he was supposed to turn that over to another brother. And so he stayed faithful to that until the right time to uncover that understanding and handed it over to this other pastor. And not only did he do that, he didn't have a heart of competition, but he helped serve that ministry and that church and that pastor for a season of time. And then even though he had all this ministry aspiration and has gone through doing his Master's of Divinity degree, nothing had manifested at that time. And so it's really easy in those difficult times to do something in the flesh out of frustration. And do it. What you do is you jumped out of the frying pan and into the fire, because you do it. You're moving out of frustration and not out of the word of the Lord. Yeah. And so I commend you for doing that, even though it's frustrating. And I think most of us, if we've walked this walk very long, we've been there.
Yeah.
And
and there was some boneheaded things I did out of frustration.
Sure.
But living in rural Pennsylvania, God gave me the luxury of having some privacy to make those mistakes.
Yeah. It wasn't real public mistakes.
No, not at all. No. So
yeah. And so anyhow, out of the blue, I was working, and I thought, I need to reach out to this guy that I met, and I couldn't even remember your name at the time. And so I started going through my smartphone contacts, and I found David Hoflein, and I thought, that's the guy. And I texted him, and it wasn't seconds, and he texted me right back. And then I think we met at Sheets for coffee. We set up a coffee meeting within a day or two. And then from that time, our friendship and connection has just grown and grown. And so over time, I invited him to United with Christ in Johnson City, the church that we both are part of in Johnson City, New York, under Apostle Chris Scarenzi. And now, this was after a season of David pastoring in some churches that were not necessarily very exciting. It was rather dry. It was some labor.
Preaching in denominational churches in the region as well, which didn't pay anything, but it was fun to do. Right.
Yeah. And so he was doing what he knew to do, and he was doing what he thought would produce some fruit, and it did produce some fruit. There was a lot of people that got saved, got filled with the Spirit, got healed through his ministry, but he was laboring and plowing the field alone, and that's not fun. And New Testament ministry is almost always team ministry. Yeah. And so I invited David and his beautiful wife, Kate, to the United with Christ Church in Johnson City, and then introduced him to Apostle Chris Scarenzi. And immediately there was a divine connection there. And that's the same connection I sensed when I met Pastor Chris, Apostle Chris. And so we've both been part of the work there now for several years, over 5 years. We're close to 5 years for me, and about 4 years, I think, for you or so. And so out of that, now David has become such a fixture in the church. He leads a lot of different ministries. He's a very vital part of that team, and is also now developing the School of Ministry. And so, Dave, talk a little bit about some of the progression to the School of Ministry, and then where we're going with the School of Ministry.
Yeah, thanks. It's funny, you invited me to come visit the church and meet Apostle Chris, and it was December 2016 when we did, and the very first conversation I had with Apostle Chris, he said, my 30-year dream is to do a School of Ministry. What do you think about that? It's like, I was like, what do you mean? What do I think about that? And so he's bringing this up in our first conversation.
Wow, the very first conversation.
I never met him. He brings it up.
I did not know that.
Yeah. And so wouldn't you know, because you invited me in, you promoted me to these guys, and they sensed it in their heart. That was a real connection. Eventually, it was quite a long story, but Chris asked me to start a School of Ministry. And so we started on Wednesday nights, and then we decided to go full time. And so now we have a full-time school in person. Right. And we have monthly online experience, and we have e-courses. So we've got 3 layers of the thing available now. So our our in-person training school goes from September to May, and it starts September 15th. So I think the application deadline's passed, but you could still apply if you want.
Yeah, it never hurts to try.
And then our Word School, which is our monthly school that anyone can get involved with, is September 19th. And that's just a 1-day webinar, web conference. Right. It's also in person, but it's online. You can sign up for that as well. And then our thing that's always going is we have these e-courses. We've got 3 e-courses, and one of them's free. The free one's called Identity Track, and it just helps you figure out what kind of son and daughter you are, your gifts, your calling. Yeah. What has God really created you to do? What's your purpose as a son or daughter? And so that's called Identity Track, and you can find that UWCSOM.thinkific.com.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the school is continually having content added.
Yeah.
There will be online content built out continually. How do they reach you, and how do they reach the school?
The school, you can get to the school through our website. It's UWCSOM.com. So it's United with Christ School of Ministry, but it's just an acronym. UWCSOM.com is our website. And you can reach me through that website, or you can reach me through SOM@unitedwithchrist.org. SOM@unitedwithchrist.org.
Okay.
And those are great ways to connect. You can actually just email that email and say you want into the Word School or their monthly web conference, September 19th. Say, hey, I want in, and we'll email you back a Zoom link on the day, and then you can get into the conference for free.
Wow. So that's a great opportunity for you to get introduced to the school. It's a free opportunity. Yeah. September 19th. It's going to be a one-day intensive, really, right?
Yep.
And it costs absolutely nothing. And you'll get a taste of what the school is about. And this is going to be a monthly offering, I think.
Monthly, yeah.
And so it'll be through the Zoom app. And you'll find a flavor of the kingdom that you'll just absolutely love. And we're a very relational people. And then I think the school has a Facebook page as well, right?
Yeah, United with Christ School of Ministry Facebook page.
So the UWC is United with Christ, and then SOM is School of Ministry. And so you've got the website, you've got an email address. We'll put a link under this message on Facebook so that you have access to that e-course, and then also through the links that he just communicated to you, and email addresses, you can reach out to the School of Ministry and get an opportunity to see what we're about and be a part of that, and then be a part of the offerings that are moving forward. The nice thing is that the free e-course that he's talking about on identity is fantastic, but we have other courses that do cost some money. There's one on fivefold ministry that's got a whole bunch of great content on it, and I think there's another.
There's one on apostolic fatherhood from Apostle Chris about what is an apostolic father, what should it look like biblically.
Yeah,
a lot of weirdness around apostles. And suits and jets and control, and he just smashes all of that and just portrays this really beautiful biblical picture of apostolic fatherhood. Yeah.
Right. Yes. And so we're about relationship. We're about sonship. We're about connecting by the Holy Spirit and functioning, getting people functional in their gifts and callings. Yeah. And so the School of Ministry, that's our heartbeat, is to help people get into the right mode of ministry to fulfill their calling. And so we work in tandem with the Holy Spirit. We don't know everything, but we do know how to hear the voice of the Spirit. Yeah. And you're going to meet some great people, and you're going to hear some amazing teaching from some anointed people of God that absolutely will blow your socks off. And so be sure to log on to the website and sign up for this webinar, this one-day intensive on September 19th. Is that going to be through Zoom?
Yep.
And will it also be on Facebook?
No.
Do you know? Okay,
no.
So only through the Zoom.
Parties only. Yeah.
So it's a private watch party, but you can get emailed a link so that you can participate. Yeah. Anything else? Any other thoughts?
We're always churning out new stuff. So tune into the Facebook page or the website to find out what's going on that's new.
Yeah, and our church website is www.unitedwithchrist.org. Through that website, you can connect to our online media, our YouTube channel. Be sure to subscribe to that. Again, hundreds of fantastic messages, and we look forward to developing a relationship with you. God bless you, and thank you so much, Dave. Dave has been he's one of my absolutely best friends, and we do a lot of stuff together. We do ministry and life together, and it's an absolute privilege. I absolutely have nothing but high praise for this man, and so the school reflects that. And so God bless you, man, and thank you so much. We'll talk to you again soon.